Welcome, everyone. Glad to be with you and glad to have you here. Just to reiterate what I mentioned in the chat, that if you would like to have captions, that is subtitles during this presentation, you can hit the little button that says CC or live captions in the menu, in the Zoom menu, and you'll be able to follow along with what I'm saying as I present it. So our presentation is entitled Innovation That Includes Everyone, the example of users as experts. My name is Emil and I'm a researcher at Funka, and I'm joined here today by Helena Jonsson, who's a project coordinator at Furuboda, and somewhere lurking in the wings as well, we have Sara Källstrand, who's my dear colleague at Funka, and she's a research strategist and also deeply involved in this project. But I'll be doing most of the talking today, so I hope that's all right with you. Funka, for those of you who don't know us, we're an organization that was founded by the Swedish disability rights movement in the late 90s. What happened then was that all the disabled persons organizations in Sweden at the time came together and set up a digital portal, a digital platform that would collect all the information that persons with disabilities would need at the time on the web. This turned out to be very popular and was eventually turned into a private company in the year 2000. And this private company has since then developed into what we like to refer to as an accessibility one-stop shop. So everything to do with accessibility, whether it's audits or training or just general consulting, we're able to do that for you. And we also have a specific department for research and innovation, which is the department that Sara and I belong to. And the purpose of our department is to develop knowledge about things that we don't know already, and so that can sort of feed into our ordinary activities. And we do that through a variety of research and innovation projects that we carry out with partners in Sweden and the Nordic region and elsewhere in Europe. So we work on lots of different levels there. And Furuboda, Helena, would you like to just
yes, of course. I work for Furuboda Association, and that's a Swedish civil society association that operates Furuboda Folkhögskola. That is an independent adult education college and Sweden's largest college for people with severe disabilities. Furuboda believes that everyone has the right to inclusion and education, irrespective of their capacity to function. So that's also why we are in this project with Funka, and we are the project coordinators of users as experts.
That's right. Thank you so much, Helena. So enough about us. Let's talk about what we're actually here to talk about, which is the project and what we're doing. And I'd like to start by just giving a background to how we thought of this project and where it came from. So you heard me mention fleetingly there the word accessibility, and you might be thinking, well, hang on, what is that? What do you mean by accessibility? Fear not, let me tell you. So when we talk about accessibility here at Funka, what we refer to is products and services for everyone, regardless of ability. So whether or not you have a disability or no matter what situation you're in, the products and services that we provide to you should work for your circumstances. So really what it's about for us is designing things with humans at the center of the design process. Really human-centered design, and really starting from the starting point of actual humans and actual human needs. And by doing so, we build in a flexibility for different needs, because there's a fact of life that all of us will have varying needs, and our needs in terms of accessibility will vary from person to person, from disability to disability, from situation to situation, but also throughout our lives. You know, our level of functioning will sort of vary throughout our lives. It's not a constant. So this is really what we mean when we talk about accessibility. And of course, we normally work with accessibility in the digital sphere. So we work a lot on web accessibility and how to make digital solutions accessible. And that's become more and more important in recent years, because obviously Sweden and a lot of other countries are in the middle of what's known as the digital transformation. So a lot of products and services in society are moving into the digital space. And it's important to make sure that those products and services take accessibility and accessibility concerns into account, to make sure that everyone's sort of on board for the journey that is digital transformation. We also usually say that accessibility is necessary for some, but useful for everyone, good for everyone, really. And that's really something that we try to stress to our clients, that accessibility is good, not just for your for people who have specific needs, but for everyone, and for you as well, because by working with this accessibility and by integrating accessibility into your workflows, into your processes, into your development processes, you will be able to reach a lot more people with whatever you're offering them. And you also won't have to spend as much time developing sort of alternative solutions for people who need that. So we really try to bring home to everyone we talk to that having an accessibility mindset is of benefit to you, and it's a good thing, and you should want to work with accessibility. But whether or not you agree with us on that, the fact of the matter is that you sort of have to think about accessibility, whether or not you want to, because right now, accessibility, and in particular web accessibility, is a matter of European law. A few years back, the European Union introduced something called the Web Accessibility Directive, which is a piece of legislation that sets minimum requirements for the accessibility of websites and mobile applications of public sector bodies throughout Europe and the European Economic Area, and really further afield as well, because what the EU does has knock-on effects on other countries as well. So this is a big piece of legislation that sort of upended the way in which we approach accessibility and the sort of level of awareness of accessibility in various organizations, not just in public sector organizations, but elsewhere as well. Because this is a piece of legislation, it needs to be monitored, it needs to be followed up. And how do we do that in practice? And here, to our mind, is where the problem arises. Because the new legislation creates an increased demand for audits. Auditing is the main way in which we check web accessibility. And really, what it's about is that you should do a combination of automatic tests and manual checks of a digital interface, say a website, to go through it and see whether or not it complies with the legal requirements and the technical requirements. But in order to do those audits, in order to do those checks, you need to have the knowledge, and you need to understand the requirements, and the requirements are highly technical. So you need to have a very specific level of knowledge that you can't just, that you sort of need to study. And at the moment, too few people possess that knowledge. It's not an integrated part of ICT education, really, anywhere in Europe. You know, here at Funke, we wish that we could help everyone and provide our services to everyone, but we're a fairly small company and we can't offer our services to everyone who needs them. So really, there's an imbalance between the demand that's arisen since the introduction of the new legislation and the supply that's out there of accessibility, of accessibility expertise. So how do we bridge that gap? How do we close that gap, really? So the idea that occurred to us then, based on everything that we've seen over the past 20 plus years, and from talking to the various disabled persons organizations that we're in touch with and work together with, is what emerged from that was a simple insight, which is that persons with disabilities are already experts on what works and what doesn't work. That means that a person with a disability who uses the web will have experienced inaccessibility themselves and know instinctively what it means, and have first-hand knowledge of what inaccessibility entails and how it affects them. They might not have the vocabulary to explain exactly how it affects them, and they often don't have the technical knowledge needed to sort of link their experiences to what the requirements and what the legislation, what the standards say about web accessibility. But they do have that experience. So our proposed solution in this project is to harness that experience and to train persons with disabilities into experts on web accessibility. So really make use of their experience, their lived experience of inaccessibility, and see if they can link that to the now existing legislative and standardized framework of requirements. So this is, as far as we've seen, something quite new. No one's really attempted to do this, and really what it's about is about utilizing the individual potential of a group whose potential isn't always realized in this way. And there are a number of key aspects to this solution that we're proposing as well, which is that one is that we're working a lot with co-creation, which means, by which we mean that the target audiences, i.e. persons with disabilities themselves, have been involved from the very beginning of developing this idea. Obviously we're in constant touch with the disability rights movement at Funka and at Furuboda, but specific organizations have also been involved in developing the idea and giving feedback on the development stages here. So that's sort of a key aspect of what we're doing here. We're doing it not just for persons with disabilities, but together with persons with disabilities. Another key aspect of what we're doing and of our solution is the combination of theory and practice. So you have the theory of what web accessibility is and how the requirements should work. But we also have tried to realize the importance of linking that theory both to the lived experiences of inaccessibility that our target audiences will have, so that it's relevant to their experiences, but also to make sure that when they have acquired the specific expert skills in accessibility, that they can put that into practice in a real way. And finally, there is an added benefit that we're sort of pursuing with this project, which is that persons with disabilities as a group have a higher level of unemployment than the population at large. And this is true both in Sweden and elsewhere. So we see this as one small contribution to creating more employment opportunities for a group that is sadly underserved by the labour market at the moment. So that's sort of one ambition we have with the project. So that's the idea of what we're trying to do. Now, how are we trying to put that into practice? Well, in practice, the project looks a bit like this. So we've set up a project with funding from Sweden's Innovation Agency, Vinnova. We have, it's through a program called Challenge Driven Innovation. We're currently in step 2 of that program, which relates to actually carrying out the innovation that you're proposing and actually putting it into practice and testing it in reality. The project team is headed by Funka, by virtue of being experts in web accessibility, and Fyrboda as an adult education organization and sort of experts on providing adult education to persons with disabilities. We've also had, of course, as I mentioned, disabled persons organizations involved throughout. In particular, we've had an organization for people with visual disabilities that's sort of acted as a sounding board throughout the process of development and carrying out the training. And then finally, we've also set up pilot assignments with a group of public sector bodies in various locations in Sweden. So when we actually have these fully trained user experts, as we call them, they'll be able to carry out pilot assignments and check their skills against real digital interfaces provided by public sector bodies. So what this will end up being like in practice and in reality is a course, a folkhögskola course that covers 4 different areas of web accessibility competence. So we've looked at web accessibility laws and standards, moving on from that into how you provide feedback according to those laws and standards. That is how you tell the owner of a website that something is inaccessible and how you relate that to the legislation and how you actually do that. This then leads into a segment on auditing skills and practices. So what does it actually mean to do an audit and how do you actually do it practically? And finally, we also look at what we refer to as soft skills in terms of working with public organizations and how you work as a consultant, because a lot of the people that we work with won't really have that particular experience. And so really it's about sort of professionalizing the target audiences that we work with as well, which really is a skill that can be transferable to other areas as well, not just in terms of web accessibility, but also if they want to sort of add on other skills as well. And then they were able to tie that into what they've learned about working as consultants and working with public organizations. The development process has looked something like this. We started in 2020 with the development of the course. So we set up a structure of the course, of the different lessons that we wanted to have in the course, and then we started filling that with course material. In parallel with this, we also started recruiting people to actually join a pilot version of the course. That pilot version of the course started last autumn in 2021. Right now we have a group of about 10 people with various disabilities, various accessibility needs, participating in that course, learning about what web accessibility is and how they can conduct audits. And this will then culminate in practical placements at the end of spring 2022. So once the course is actually finished, they will be able to put what they've learned to the test in these placements, where they'll get to look at actual web interfaces provided by public sector bodies and conduct audits on them. And so we haven't reached that step yet. So it'll be very interesting to see how that actually turns out, because obviously this is part of working with project financing and innovation projects, is that you're sort of going out on a limb and you're trying new things and you're not entirely sure how it'll work out. So that'll be interesting to see. What we do know so far, however, is that we've had a lot of success in several areas. And I'd just like to highlight 3 areas where we've already seen success. One area is that we have this eclectic mix of diverse abilities and experiences. We have some people who have visual disabilities in the group. We have some people who have hearing impairments in the group. We have some people who have sort of various cognitive needs in the group. We sort of approached that with a bit of trepidation, because we thought, okay, how do we, will this actually work? Will we actually be able to bring this group together and provide something that works for everyone? But really, the way it's turned out is that this has been a major benefit for everyone, because they've been able, the course participants have been able to learn from each other, and they've been able to broaden their perspectives. Because often what happens when you talk about accessibility as a user is that the individual user will have their own fairly narrow perspective of what accessibility is. It will be like, okay, this is inaccessible because I can't see this is inaccessible because I can't hear this, etc., etc., and haven't really considered what barriers and what problems might arise for other people. And this is something that they've really been able to learn from each other. And it's really peer learning is really what we've achieved here. And this is really something that we wouldn't have been able to just tell them. It wouldn't have worked the same way if we had said, okay, group A needs X and group B needs Y and group C needs Z, and so on and so forth. But having the actual personal experiences of the course participants and having them being able to share that with each other has really been a major benefit for everyone. Another area of success that we hadn't really anticipated, or that we also had some trepidation before we started, was that we're doing digital remote learning. And this is not just because of the pandemic, but also because our course participants are based across Sweden, so we had to do it in a digital fashion. So really the lessons are conducted in a manner similar to this. We have a Zoom webinars, and people join, and we share all the material digitally. And at first we were sort of scratching our heads, okay, well, how do we make this work for these various accessibility needs? And there were some teething issues where we sort of had to adjust on the fly to make sure that various accessibility needs were met. But we've been able to do that, and now we've ended up with a setup that can really serve as a model for other forms of digital remote learning with a high degree of accessibility. So we have, so for each lesson now, we have sign language interpreters, we have live captioning, and we have audio description where that's necessary. And really, so we really take all these different things into account. And really that's another benefit of working with lots of different target audiences, because you sort of have to think about these things, because because you have to make sure that everyone's on board in the course. And so that's been really fun to work with that and to make that work. And finally, for us as well, it's been hugely beneficial to be able to see the accessibility requirements that we work with every day through the eyes and through the experiences of our participants, to hear their reflections on the fairly dry technical requirements that we have at the moment, and get another sense of how we might apply them in reality. So really we're teaching them, but we're also learning a lot from our students in this course. So that's been a lot of fun. to see. And as I said, now we're sort of anxious to see how the actual placements will turn out, and it is something that we can carry on into the future. Because the final thing that I like to talk about is the potential for upscaling this and carrying this onwards after the project has ended, which it will in autumn of this year. So really the impact that we're hoping for is a win-win situation where the students on one hand get new skills that they can take on into their professional lives, and whether or not they want to work as accessibility experts or in another way. But on the other hand, we also have the public bodies who benefit from the insights of our user experts. And we'll be able to go beyond just mere compliance with the law and what the technical requirements say. And we'll be able to get a more personalized understanding of what accessibility is. And just to bring that home, I have some testimonials from from a course participants, one of our students, who told us that, well, we've learned about each other's disabilities and assistive technologies, and this has been very rewarding. So really bringing home the point that being able to interact with others who have needs that differ from your own has been a good thing, has been beneficial, and has been able to help them broaden their horizons. And from the pilot testers, on the other hand, we've heard that they believe that getting this human touch, which is what they're hoping for with their participation, will help give accessibility issues more weight in their internal organizations. Because obviously this is often an issue when you work with accessibility, that you have to sort of proselytize internally in your organization to make sure that people understand the importance of working with accessibility. And the pilot testers, from what they've seen so far, believe that this this project and this solution will help them do that. So that's the Users as Experts project, sort of in a nutshell. If you would like to learn more about the project or would like to sort of participate in the project, then please do reach out to us. The easiest way to reach out to us is to drop us a line at research@funka.com. And we're always sort of looking for, if you want to participate or if you want to contribute a digital interface that you want to have audited or things like that, drop us a line and let's see how we might be able to cooperate. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for your attention and open up the floor for questions if there are any. So you can see here that we have a question in the chat already asking if anyone can join the course in the future, disabled or not. And that's a good question. The course is, this specific course is designed for persons with disabilities. So, and that's sort of the, that's the purpose of the course that we have now. So if you have, so you should have a disability to be able to fully benefit from the course at the moment. We'll see how we implement it in the future, but I think we'll probably continue doing it somehow in a way similar to that also in the future. Right. Helena, did you want to add anything? Is there anything I missed here? Or?
No, I don't think so. I think you got it all. Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, just please get in touch with us if you have more questions afterwards.
Right, so we've got a question here. Has any thought gone into using this program for elders, for elderly people, seeing as many elderly people have problems with web accessibility this could be really useful. Good question. Yes, we work a lot with the elderly at Funka. That's sort of one of our focus areas, and of course, this is because there are lots of it's a lot of cross-pollination between the field of disability rights and the field of active and healthy aging. Simply because as you age, the likelihood that you'll develop a disability sort of increases sort of exponentially. And you also have, of course, the issue that even elderly people who don't have a disability will usually have a lower level of digital awareness and digital experience, and that will sort of hamper their ability to participate in the digital society. So we've had some discussions internally about doing this, sort of adapting this idea specifically for elderly people. And it's definitely something that we might do in the future. What we have done is that we've had various sort of more informal training sessions for elderly people, stuff like that. Of course, one major difference between the group that we're working with now and elderly people is that the point that I raised about employment opportunities sort of falls by the wayside, because you don't have the same need for that if you're of old age and already in retirement. But it's definitely something that we've discussed about how we might expand this to further groups. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so we have a question. Have you piloted similar programs outside of Sweden? If yes, what feedback did you receive and what was the outcome? This is the first time that we do a course specifically like this, that's about web accessibility, and that's specifically aimed at persons with disabilities. So really we're sort of in virgin territory here. We have done other forms of training internationally, and with this with persons with disabilities, and you know, the feedback that we get is normally quite positive, but it really depends on what you're trying to do. But there is an appetite, that's the least we can say, for more knowledge about accessibility and about the rights and living conditions of persons with disabilities. And so whenever we offer trainings on that, there's usually a lot of interest in it. Yeah. And then we have a question, will students test websites or apps task-based, or do they focus on conformance testing? So this will depend a bit on the student and sort of how far they want to go in terms of their level of competence. But what we're imagining at the moment is that most students will do sort of limited audits. So they'll do they'll look at a certain set of requirements and test against those requirements. Because obviously doing a full-scale audit is very resource intensive, even for someone who's an accessibility expert with lots of experience. So we sort of want to try to start slow and then build on that. So that's what we envisage at the moment here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just on the topic of what we've done in other countries as well, I should mention that we're conducting a sister project to this project through the Erasmus program, where we're trying to internationalize the findings and also create a great theoretical basis for what we're talking about. So sort of bring in experiences from other projects where you try to utilize the expertise of real users and rather utilize the experiences of real users and try to build expertise from that, what's usually referred to as expertise by experience. So that's something that we're working on in parallel with this, but that's really more theoretical than what we're doing. This is very much hands-on in this project. Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. Wonderful. Looking forward to hearing from you. Yeah, I suppose I can describe a bit about what the lessons actually look like. So we have when we have structure where we have 3 lessons a week. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. On Mondays, we usually do a presentation or a lecture where we go through a piece of knowledge, and then we sort of either continue that or do repetition of that on Wednesdays. And then on the Fridays, we have the course participants usually have a specific assignment that they've had to carry out for the week. So we go through those assignments and look at what the results of those assignments were. This has worked quite well, this structure last autumn. And we sort of do every other week it's Fyrboda, and every other week it's Funka, and we sort of alternate those lessons. And then we record all the lessons and we put them on a digital platform so that you can look through them again in your own time as course participants. And we'll make sure that all the material that we present as well is available to all the course participants afterwards. Mm-hmm.
Emil, can I just add something?
Yeah.
For those of you who are Swedish speaking and want to know more about our participants' perspective, they also have blogs where they write about their experience every week and so on, if you want to know more about the course in detail.
Yes, that's a very good point. And have we linked to those blogs from the website?
Not yet, but I'm sure we will do it.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good point. Thank you for raising that. And we've really had some enthusiastic group of students who are really keen to learn about this topic and really ask us a lot of sort of probing and intelligent questions during the lessons, and sometimes sort of pushing us to the boundaries of what we know, which is a lot of fun. So they challenge us as well. So that's good. Right. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, then perhaps we can wrap things up here. Right. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. As you will notice, this webinar has been recorded and will be put on the Funka YouTube page at a later date. So if you want to go back and look at what we're talking about here today, you'll be able to find that there at a later point. And if you want to chat with us, please reach out to us in the Innovation Days portal in our little booth, and we'll be present there all day if you want to know more about who we are and what we're doing. And yeah, so thank you so much for listening, and enjoy the rest of the conference.